Okay, I think we're about ready to start. Hopefully IT is ready to live stream this, this town hall. Just a formality, I get to use the gavel today. So I want to welcome you all to the GVID Town Hall, Golden Valley Improvement District. And I thank you all for being here. I appreciate every one of you. I've received numerous questions that will be answered today during the town hall. In fact, the handout that you received when you came in the room will answer many of the questions that's been put forward to us. So you may want to refer to that as you wonder if your questions are being answered, because what I've done is if I received several requests for information that's basically the same thing, I've lumped them together in one question instead of 3 or 4. So the questions may not be exactly as you ask, but I think they will answer everything that you have put forward. And if there's time at the end of the presentation and the submitted questions and our answers, I will take more questions from the audience. But I'm going to keep this on a really strict timeline because we're trying to keep the overtime down. And some of us will stay later to answer more questions after the town hall is completed. So with that being said, I just wanted to remind you of some of the things that's gone on over the past months. So back in May 1st, the Board of Directors for the GVID, which is also the Board of Supervisors, we passed a resolution 2023-01, and that was to establish the new fees for water rates and also a surcharge. So we received a lot of negative pushback on the surcharge. And based on that feedback, I decided to go ahead and allocate more of my ARPA funding for the GVID to drill a new well, which eliminated the surcharge. But we left the service fees increased as was submitted and approved by the Board of Directors. So that was June 19th when we received a lot of that pushback, and we did listen to the people, and the Board of Directors did agree. It seemed to be a really big hardship, more so than we realized when we passed the resolution. So we rescinded that, and then we directed staff to explore the option of converting GVID from a county improvement district into a domestic water improvement districts. And with that would come a board of directors that was elected from people that resided within the GVID district. So that's still being looked at, and in today's town hall, we'll discuss some of the options that GVID has. And the 3 options that we're going to talk about today is leaving the county supervisors as the board of directors. So if the board decides to do that, nothing will change. Life goes on, and the county is happy to do that for the people of GVID. And I think, personally, I think we've done an exceptional job, and I want to thank our members here that will answer questions. The next option, of course, is to convert this to a domestic water improvement district, and then hopefully you would elect people that have the knowledge to run an improvement district. And I think if you decide that's the way you want to go, hopefully you've got those people identified and know what their expertise is and how all that's going to come together. Or maybe this meeting will decide whether or not you do that or not. And then the third option, we're going to have a presentation given by a private utility company that's interested in buying yet another water company in Mojave County. And they've already purchased one, and they'll explain that to you. So that's going to be your 3 options that you'll be hearing today. And I look forward to discussing this with you, and we will decide as the board of directors on October the 2nd which direction we want to go. And that's going to be a public hearing, so you're all invited to come and speak again. And we'll make the decision which direction GVID will be going from there. So at this time, I would like to introduce the Public Works Director, Mr. Stephen Lakowski, and he's going to introduce his staff.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Latowski with Mojave County Public Works. I'm the Public Works Director, and I want to start by thanking you all for this appreciated opportunity, your time, and having this dialogue on the Golden Valley Improvement District water system. I open by recognizing our Improvement District Manager, Kelly Stickrath, as well as our Senior Water Operator, Andrew Graldi. Through them and their skilled and experienced staff, our focus has always been to serve our customers well and to act in the best interest of the GVID water system. It is the only way by which we can take pride and satisfaction in our work. That said, water quality and delivery is paramount. Vendor pricing and performance on repairs is scrutinized, and future needs are planned and not reacted to. As a courtesy in preparing for this town hall, we prepared a handout, which I hope all of you had come across at least when you entered the front doors. The handout summarizes our general services performed on the administrative and technical side and our capabilities in real-time monitoring. I was just really wanting to just show you some screenshots on how we can access in real time the current status of any working well or the storage tank, for example. And we also provided a financial snapshot, as well as a list of current and upcoming projects. One project that stands out upcoming is a recent federal mandate that requires water systems to conduct an inventory of all water service lines. That's the line from your water meter into your residence, an inventory of service lines under the new EPA lead and copper rule. Essentially, if there was a service line constructed prior to 1988, it may contain lead. I do want to assure you on a couple of fronts. One, this is of course an unfunded federal mandate, and as such, we worked with ADEQ, where ADEQ, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, will conduct that, or has at least pledged to conduct that through their own consultant at no cost to the water system. So we kind of, bypassed the cost that would be involved in that. And then on the other front, because most, if not all, residences within Golden Valley Improvement District were likely constructed 1988 or later, there is probably little probability that those service lines will, in fact, be discovered. If the residence was constructed after 1987, meaning 88 or later, then there's no chance it could have a lead-containing service line. Those were prohibited for sale or use in the United States at that time. So we presented a budget summary in the handout, as well as a cash balance. Our operations cash balance shows a healthy amount above what's necessary to carry at least 2 months of operations expenses. And our future development fund reflects the sale of all of the remaining water allocations under the district's total allocation of 1,400 acre feet, or equivalent to about 1.25 million gallons per day. So I appreciate you, Supervisor, allowing us to open with these remarks. And I will say in segue to Cactus Utility that Mojave County Public Works, we administer a franchise agreement that the county has with Cactus Utility for all the water and I believe wastewater as well, utilities that Cactus operates. And I will say very kindly that Cactus Utility is in perfectly good standing with regard to their franchise. Supervisor, I'll turn it to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Lakowski. And at this time, I'll introduce Cactus State Utility Operating Company, the Regional Director, Mr. Fred Crease, and he's also in charge of the utility acquisitions and government relations. So I believe you have a presentation to give us this morning, and we look forward to that.
I do.
So
Can you hear me?
I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bishop. Thank you, Public Works Director Latosky, for your kind words. And it's gratifying for me to see some of the proactive things that you've done taking care of the water system up here. I don't typically see that with many of the systems that I've been looking at. But my name is Fred Kreis. I know I have my back to the audience. I apologize for that. It's spelled K-R-I-E-S-S. This afternoon, what I'd like to do is just give you a very short, brief overview of who we are in, just tap the screen. Maybe not. Let's see. We are not advancing. Well, here we go. There we go. I'm sorry. Yeah, so Cactus State Utility, we're actually part of a company called Central States Water Resources. We now are active in 11 states, providing service to more than 500,000 people in those states. But here's the thing. What makes us different than pretty much most every other company, I've been in the business now for 45 years. And by the way, Mojave County is very familiar to me because I used to work for Citizens Utilities back in the day and spent a lot of time up in Mojave County working with the electric utility and the water wastewater utility down in Bullhead City. So even though we're the 9th largest water company in the United States, what makes us different is we're focused on mid-size, smaller water systems, pretty much very similar in size to that of Golden Valley. In fact, here we go. I will get the hang of this eventually, but I'd like to talk about our Arizona presence because that's what's important. So here in Arizona, we moved into the state actually during pandemic week back in 2020, which is when I began working for Central States. So since then, we now own or have applications pending before the Corporation Commission, 34 water and wastewater systems, all scattered around the state. We'll be serving a little more than 6,000 service connections when all is said and done. Now, here in Mojave County, of course, we own White Hills Water Company up in the extreme far northern reaches of the county, and we're in the process of acquiring Sacramento Utilities right in Golden Valley. Size isn't really important to us because, again, for us, it's a service, service, service. And we've never forgotten our roots about the importance of customer service. Our focus always will continue to be on providing service to Arizona's rural communities. Now, one of the things that we do is we focused on making service improvements wherever we can. And really the most important thing about this particular slide is that I hope that you all can appreciate that having a healthy water utility, which you now currently have, but the future direction of maintaining and sustaining a healthy water utility directly contributes to property values and helps sustain property values in any community. Again, our focus is on improving and sustaining Arizona's water and wastewater utilities. That's sort of a snapshot of some of the systems that we are acquiring. If you look down on the very bottom, the second picture from the left is actually White Hills Water. And we're in the process of renovating those water storage tanks up there as part of our improvements that we're making. So let's talk briefly about how committed we are to the state of Arizona. So far, we've earmarked about $15 million of improvements for these systems. I'd like to highlight a couple things if I could. Let's talk about wells. What we're doing with all the wells in every water system that we're acquiring, we're pulling the wells, we're inspecting the wells, of course, but we're installing monitoring equipment on the well pump itself so we can continuously monitor water levels, both static water level and pumping water levels. I just read an article last night about what's happening to groundwater levels nationwide. You know that we are in a 20-year extended drought, and our wells and our aquifers are stressed by that. So we're rehabbing wells, we're drilling new wells on some of our systems. Let's talk about White Hills. White Hills, we have homeowners living in that community that currently don't have water service. They're hauling water to their homes. They have to go to standpipes located and they've got to put quarters into a standpipe. So they drive their trucks up, they fill a tank up, they drive back down to their home, they fill their cisterns up or their water tanks up. What we're doing in White Hills is we're working on getting these people water. And I've been talking to one homeowner who has lived there for 25 years and has been hauling water for 25 years. So we're actively working to get these people water at the lowest possible cost that we can to be sure they get water service. I talked about customer service. These are just words. The proof is in the pudding. Actions are what really matter. We'd be more than happy to provide recommendations to you all on communities that we're currently providing service to. Communication, that's where it starts for us. That's pretty much what we do, is communicate, 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 going above and beyond to be open and transparent with all the communities that we are servicing. Now, this is one, I'd just like to talk a moment. First of all, strong believer in supporting local businesses. We contract with local firms. We use local contractors. If there are employees already in place on the water systems we acquire, we offer employment to any existing people that are working there, because we understand the value of that expertise. Briefly, let's talk about rates. When we acquire a water system, the rates don't change. We don't set rates. Our rates are approved by the Arizona Corporation Commission, who not only sets rates, but they also determine how much a profit that Central States can earn. We are highly regulated. I can tell you this. We acquired our first group of companies in late 2021. Their rates have been unchanged ever since then. Their rates aren't going to change until sometime in the latter part of 2025. So they will have gone 4 years experiencing the benefits of the service that we offer without their rates being changed. So again, we are highly regulated by the Arizona Corporation Commission. I would like to close off talking about briefly water is life. And this is a picture of what's happening with Lake Mead and the declining water levels. And later this month, October 19th of this month, there's a nationwide kind of imagine a day without water. So for us, it's about sustaining the quality of life in Arizona. Water is life, plain and simple. And it is our most valuable water resource beyond a shadow of a doubt. I hope I stuck within my 10-minute time frame, but that's what I wanted to talk with you, just a kind of a brief overview on who we are. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Cresson. You are right on time. I appreciate that. Before you step down, I want to ask if any of the panel members have any questions that they may have at this time. And then if we have time, we'll take questions from the audience.
No, thank you, Mr. Kreis. Really appreciate your presentation. Very informative.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And just so you know, Mr. Chris and Cactus State Utility will be giving a similar presentation to the Board of Supervisors on October the 2nd. So if you want to attend that meeting, you'll have his presentation a second time. So, at this point, I think we'll go right into the question and answer period from the public. And we're going to go right into the emails that were sent to us with specific questions grouped in categories. So we're going to start out first with the legal questions. And we'll start with Ryan Esplin. He's our Deputy County Attorney. Mr. Esplin, the first question I have would be, what is the status of the litigation between KP Ventures and Mojave County?
So there was a lawsuit that was filed by KP Ventures against Mojave County. There was, at the trial level, that case was dismissed, and that has been appealed. It is currently on appeal. KP Ventures has appealed that. It's currently on appeals with the Court of Appeals. I don't go into details about any kind of litigation. I don't do that over in the public, but that is the current status of the litigation with KP Ventures.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we all understand if something's currently in litigation, we really can't speak too much about that. So what is the status of the litigation between GVID and the bonding company?
So there was also a lawsuit that Mojave County filed against the bonding company as well as KP Ventures. That has been dismissed. We have dismissed it because we are trying to work out things with the bonding company in good faith. We have reached out to them and are trying to work out the claim with the bonding company. If it doesn't work out, then we will reevaluate to determine if we wish to pursue, if we can pursue.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Esplin. We now have some questions that are kind of in a general category, so we'll figure out who's going to answer these as we go along. So the question is, when will the new well be drilled? So probably, Steve, you can answer that one.
Yes, Supervisor Bishop. We are preparing the specifications and bid documents and expect to procure an invitation for bids in the near term. I have actually been actively working on this all the way through today with our design consultant. Now, please know that the procurement process, it's a government process, generally takes about 2 months through contract award, after which construction, meaning the drilling, typically commences 4 to 6 weeks after the contract award.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, who will oversee the drilling of a new well if the project starts before a conversion actually takes place?
It's a two-pronged process. The county, through Public Works, will manage the drilling construction contract. However, our design consultant, which is Clear Creek Associates out of the Phoenix metro area, will provide construction inspection services during well construction. And Clear Creek has many decades of experience with their staff and their particular company, and this is their specialty, drilling water wells in terms of the engineering side of drilling a water well. So we're very, very comfortable partnering with Clear Creek, and again, they will perform largely the technical construction inspection during the drilling process.
Okay. What assets, such as vehicles, equipment, parts, and inventory, does GVID own?
There are a number of assets, significant assets, that are under the ownership of the district. We have 4 vehicles, pickup trucks ranging from a 2006 one-ton Ford to a 2020 Chevy 1500, as well as a 2020 Chevy or Ford F-150. We have 2 pieces of heavy equipment, a Caterpillar backhoe and a vac trailer. Other assets include a modular building at the intersection of Chino and Laguna. That's where Andrew and his staff largely work their field operations out of. And we do have a metal building as well at one of our storage tank sites. We also consider the SCADA system, that very electronic monitoring system that is those couple of screenshots that you see in your handout. You know, that would be considered an asset. And the district does have 4 owned computers. As far as parts, our parts inventory value per our finance department is at about $100,000, and that does include the spare motor that we have for well 1. We have 3 standpipes, as you all know. Those are assets. We also have 3 storage tanks, tanks A and B up on Teddy Roosevelt, as well as the southern tank B on Egar Road. And then we have 4 well sites. 2 are the production wells, well 1 and well 2. There is a well 3 and a well 4. Those were drilled actually before well 1 and well 2 were developed. Those were drilled in the late 80s, and neither one are in use right now. They were, deemed non-productive, so to speak, back in the late 80s. So that's basically a general summary of our assets.
Wow, that's a lot of equipment, a lot of property. It looks like we'll have some research to do on how to convert that, if that's the direction that this group wants us to take. So, but not undoable. We can convert all this, and we'll decide that October the 2nd. So now the people are asking, what kind of repairs does Public Works visualize in the future for the next year?
I will presently note, and it's documented in the handout, that we are undertaking repairs of the pumps and motors at our booster station, as well as inspecting the well 2 motor and pump at present. But looking ahead, we have our sights, as far as a technical recommendation toward starting a systematic replacement of the isolation valves around the entire district. There are numerous dozens of isolation valves, and this allows us, when we do have a water leak, to actually shut down parts of the system. The system is over 30 years old, and it would be time to consider, a more systematic replacement of those valves. So that might be a project that we look ahead toward the next fiscal year. And there is a need, and again, this is due to original equipment, to replace the cathodic protection system at Tank B. So those would be the two forward-looking projects that we might consider put on our radar.
Okay, so GVID owns a lot of property that GVID wells are owned. How many of these parcels, I think there's 10 or 11.
Right.
How many of these parcels show ownership in the district name, including the field operations office?
Yes, Supervisor Bishop, there are 10 parcels that have GVID infrastructure on them. 5 of these parcels show ownership in the district's name, including the field operations office at Laguna at Chino, Tank B, the original well 3, the original well number 4, and standpipe 2. And the rest of the other 5 parcels would be in the county's name.
Okay. Would the county transfer this land to GVID ownership?
I believe I might turn that one to Ryan.
The question is whether the county would transfer the land over to the GVID.
The ownership of parcels that's in our name.
I think we would talk with the supervisors about that, but I think that'd be the arrangement that we would try to do that to make sure that GVID has those parcels where they've been operated on and so on. So I can't speak for the supervisors, but I think that would be the intention to do something like that.
Okay, and then what licenses and certifications are required in operating a domestic water improvement district?
Well, this stems on the actual category of water system that is on file with ADEQ, the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. So GVID is a grade 2 distribution system and a grade 1 treatment system, which requires a grade 2 water distribution system operator and grade 1 treatment operator certification through ADEQ, And Andrew holds both of those certifications, and we also, I believe, Andrew, have other staff that are certified as well through ADEQ.
Okay, should the improvement district become a domestic improvement district, who would be doing the day-to-day maintenance?
The board of directors would determine the mechanism by which day-to-day maintenance would be performed. Options include district-employed staff, outside contractor, or an agreement with the county for public works staff support.
Okay, would it be necessary to have a new building for these operations?
Excellent question. So the current modular building at Laguna and Chino is really used just for field operations. We see this building as stressed, and tenant improvements would be required to operate a public office and administrative operations. Possible options for administrative and billing operations include leasing office space in the area or establishing an agreement with the county for public works billing support, or of course, performing those tenant improvements at the existing modular building.
Okay, so earlier you went over the vehicles that GVID owns. One of the questions that came to me was, would there be required a new fleet of vehicles for GVID if it's under private ownership as a domestic water improvement district?
Well, currently the district owns a rather modern fleet of pickup trucks. We actually have more vehicles across all of our water system operators, but please bear in mind, we also operate 3 other public water systems, the I-40 Industrial Corridor system, which receives a lot of attention day in and day out. Also Horizon 6, which is largely operated through an IGA with Lake Havasu City, but we still send our operators down there from time to time. And then Lake Juniper, we just took over. So by and large, I think, Andrew, maybe you'd have to give us a nod. you probably would find that four trucks would be more than adequate for GVID to continue operating, and those would be assets of the district already. So to answer the question, no, we don't see any new trucks or vehicles being required.
Okay, so this next question, I think, is one that most of the audience is really interested in. I think the people want to know what kind of expertise is required to run this as a private improvement district, a domestic improvement district.
Yes, so day-to-day operations include, water main break repairs can be handled under direction of the grade 2 water distribution system operator. Andrew and the staff have very skillfully attended to and repaired, water line breaks, in the past. And the billing and customer service operations, which is kind of the administrative side, can be handled by a staff experienced in billing and related administrative services. Now, when we get into production well, electrical, and other major specialty repairs, those are going to necessitate contractor support. We do it, and chances are the districts, as far as, I know some of the other, domestic improvement district water companies in the county, they oftentimes turn to a contractor to provide those specialty repairs. We see civil engineering services support, likely required on any rehabilitation or replacement work that kind of changes the pre-existing function of system infrastructure. So while a contractor can come in and, take a piece of infrastructure and just return it to its pre-existing function, if there's any inherent changes to their function, whether, upsizing, downsizing, or developing new infrastructure, then chances are a civil engineer would need to be engaged. And, civil engineers are, readily available on a consulting basis.
Okay, thank you. What about bylaws? Do they need to be updated, or do the existing bylaws work the same for a domestic water improvement district?
The district actually maintains a rather robust set of policies and procedures that were actually put into effect. I have it right here, December 11th, 1991. And we've operated off of those same policies and procedures with some nominal changes over the course of time. And they were actually last updated on May 1st with the rate change adjustment. But I would say that the district is pretty well positioned under its own policies and procedures to operate administratively, and continue, the same, customer requirements, et cetera, that are required of those.
Okay, so if this turns into a domestic water improvement district, once they get their elected board of directors, they could change these bylaws if they don't fit their needs. I mean, they don't have to stay with the bylaws that the county has put together. So, here's a question about the ARPA money. This would go to you, Ryan. How much of the ARPA money has been allocated to GVID currently?
I think, Steve, you probably have that number.
Yes, there's actually $1.7 million in District 4 ARPA funds that have been allocated toward drilling and installation of a new well for the Golden Valley Improvement District.
Okay, and that money has a sunset on it, does it not?
Yes, the work, as I understand it, would have to be obligated by the end of 2024. Is that correct, Ryan?
There's two dates. There's end of 2024 or end of 2026. I can't remember which one.
I think the end of 2024 just obligates the money, meaning that you actually have to have an active contract. And then the 26th date is the completion.
Completion,
which
yeah.
would not be a problem for a production well.
Yeah.
We definitely beat those dates.
Okay, next question. How many accounts or funds does GVID have, and what are those amounts?
Yes, we reflected those in the handout, but just to summarize, GVID maintains accounts for system operations and future development, the latter funded by the sale of unassigned water allocations. As of the end of August, the cash balance in operations is $217,819, and future development, $285,754.
And do we have any debt with GVID?
GVID has zero debt.
Really? That's good news. Okay, what is the average monthly revenue and expenses for GVID?
Here we based this on the FY 2023, and when I say fiscal year 23, I should express for all of you, the county kind of operates middle of the year for our fiscal year. So that would be July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. That's the period by which we have actual figures that we shared, and we did place this on the handout as well. So if you just take the straight average, GVID had about $80,162 in average monthly revenue and $87,495 in average monthly expense. GVID had $80,162 average monthly revenue and $87,495 average monthly expense in fiscal year 23.
Okay, how would converting GVID affect the Public Works Department financially?
I can kind of speak to this, from my, years of, being a Public Works Director. I've been the director since 2009, and I really foresee no undue financial impact to the Public Works Department.
Would conversion cost the county more to continue operations in the Public Works Department without GVID revenues?
Again, I don't foresee any undue impact to the financial operations of the Public Works Department as a result of any action that might be forthcoming.
What about jobs? Are county employees or GVID employees affected at all?
We will, and I am very steadfast in underscoring the importance of this statement. There will not be job loss in Public Works Department over any action that the board might take. We will make arrangements for the water system operators that currently support GVID to have similar assignments. We really do have quite a bit on our plate with other water systems that we operate. We do a fantastic job, and that's a credit to Andrew and his staff for balancing the workload, but still providing for stellar customer service and sustainable water system function. But I do want to emphasize that any action taken by the board of directors, that being the board of supervisors, will not have an impact on jobs in Public Works.
Thank you, Steve. How would the checks and balances be accounted for going forward?
And I must speak to this, Supervisor Bishop, really in terms of the present. So as far as how we're currently operating the system, GVID operations and financial practices are held to county standards and practices.
And then accountability standards for resources and financial audits quarterly?
And this is really where our administrative staff under Kelly's leadership really shines. Kelly was a former bank manager, a bank branch manager, and financial reviews are completed monthly and quarterly. Expenditures are approved at multiple levels and departments, working both Public Works and Finance. Luke Mornian and his staff with the Finance Department look over our shoulder regularly on all of our expenses. Revenues are tracked and reconciled monthly.
Okay, thank you. That concludes all of the questions that were sent in advance. So we'll go on to questions that have been presented at the beginning of this meeting. The first one being from Glenna Hill and her husband, Robert Hill. They say they couldn't be here today, but they sent in a written statement that I'm just going to read. It says, I do not agree for the supervisors to relinquish the Golden Valley Water District over to the people. There's been no communication for all the residents. All is highlighted. Please do not return GVID back. That's signed by Glenna Hill. So the request to speak, I'll call on Mr. Ray Pitts. Yeah, come on up to the podium and tell us what's on your mind, and we'll answer your questions for you.
My name is Ray Pitts. I live at 6570 Nielsen Way in Golden Valley. I kind of agree with that last statement. I really don't want to see it turned over to a private company. My reason is, if we have a problem, we can bring it before the board and we can complain, and y'all are politicians. Don't mean that derogatorily, but you're politicians. So if the county doesn't like it, you're probably going to bow down to that. If we're going before a private company, we're probably going to go with a class action lawsuit. That's never going to happen in this town. So that being said, I just want to point out this American Recovery Act. My understanding is every individual section got $8 million. I think Mr. Gould wanted to give $165 each to his people in Havasu, which to me that seemed fruitless because, okay, they get $165 one time. Bill goes up $15 a month, you're in a $30 loss at the end of the year and forever. My bill, I've been really cutting back. My wife had a stroke in November, so we're really cutting back on things. In December, January, March, and April, I had between 1,700 and 1,900 gallons. Now this is in the winter. You don't use as much water in the winter. And I paid about between $17 and $18. Now come summer, I've been really cutting back. I only used 1,800 gallons. My bill is right at $30, which it would have been $18. That's a 60% increase. That's horrendous. This isn't, well, Mr. Pitts, you're going to have to pay an extra $1 every month. I'm doubling my bill. My electric bill is the same way. I use 200 kilowatts less this year than I did last year throughout the summer, every month. My bill is equal to what it was last year because the rates have gone up. So my conservation is fruitless. It does no good. If you're going to raise the rates every time I try and conserve, it doesn't do me any good.
Mr. Pitts, thank you for those comments, and I appreciate what you're saying. Do you have a question for any of the panel members? Or do you have a question?
Well, I would have a question when you say that, you mentioned, I can't remember how you phrased it, but there'll be a way to look over and make sure everything's going right and all. I'm not so sure that's really a fair statement because I got to say, if we haven't taken care of our water systems up until now, and now I understand there's $3.78 million that's from the American Recovery Act. I don't know, why aren't we using that money? So when we turn it over to a private company, I don't know how we have any say over them at all. So it's not so much
your question is, how are the ARPA funds being?
How are you going to protect that? How are you going to protect us against, with all due respect, them?
Okay, thank you for your question. Did you understand the question? I think he's wanting to know why isn't the ARPA funds being used for GVID? That's the way I kind of understood it.
The ARPA fund appropriation of $1.7 million will be put toward the well number 2 replacement project. So it is being put towards the drilling of a new production well to resolve what is a deficiency in the district's ability to operate a second well should well number 1 go down. So currently the district demand is about 395,000 gallons per day. And if well number 1 were to go down, the second well number 2, only operates about 245,000 gallons per day. So there's a need for a second well to provide for a production capacity that exceeds the daily demand of the district. It's kind of like the analogy of having an airplane with 2 engines versus 1. If you have 2 engines, typically you can still fly the airplane. So that's what we want to achieve with drilling the second production well, and that's where the ARPA funds would go to. And if I may, I think I did infer maybe a comment that I could address with a response. And the gentleman brings up a very good observation. With regard to the water bill and the water bill increase, that was largely attributed to the discontinuance of the 1,500 gallon per month allowance that was provided under the $15 fixed rate. When that was removed, the 1,500 gallons, if you were to use up to 1,500 gallons per month, that is now billed at $7 per 1,000 gallons. So, approximately,
So. $7 per 1,000 gallons plus the 15.
Yes, of course, sir. So that's where that gap comes in. So
The letter we received in regards to this increase,
Sir, we're being live streamed and nobody on video can hear you, and we can just barely hear you. So if you want to make a comment, you have to come back to the podium. And please make it brief.
So the problem with that is when I called the water company about this rate increase, everything on that letter was wrong. They said the $15 charge won't change. Not true. It was 44 cents to $7. Not true. Everything was wrong. So it's hard for me to really speak with all certainty when I'm having to base things on, well, I think they meant this, but they couldn't tell me what they meant. So you can see where my doubts come from.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next we have Logan Marsh.
Good evening, Logan Marsh. Thanks for having me. I have a few questions. So,
Could you give us your address, please?
yes, 917 South Emery Park Road, Golden Valley. I'm also a Golden Valley resident.
Thank you.
So I think everybody here was impacted by the recent rate changes, and then what the board did was extremely generous with the ARPA funds, and you know, I am thankful. I have a lot of concerns moving forward with where we are going to go as a district, whether the Board of Supervisors continues to handle it, or we go private, or we sell. I guess my question is geared more towards if we sell, have we done a lot of research on the company interested in buying us? Have we recently looked at all of the Google reviews for some of their districts? Most of them operate under 2 stars. Currently, GVID holds a five-star Google reviews, along with other Board of Supervisor managed districts. They all hold above a 3.5 star. So I understand there's a lot of upset people here, but my question is I'd like to see that maintained, and what are we going to do to maintain the level of customer service that we're currently receiving? I think the county's doing a pretty good job, but I think if we privatize, we definitely need to do a lot more research and, you know, maybe assign a committee to look into it. Thank you.
Gene Bishop, Supervisor Bishop, do you mind?
Oh, I'd love to. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think you raised some great concerns, and those are things that the supervisors should look into. It really is in the early stages of evaluating all the options. And so the fact that you raised that up, those are things that the supervisors should look into, and I imagine they will look into. So thank you. I appreciate that. I just want to clarify too. It's not, you know, between the options, the Board of Supervisors remain as the Board of Directors, or it's or it's sold to a private company. The privatization, it's not going private. I just want to make sure you understand that. Yeah. It's still a government entity. It's still a political subdivision. It's still a public entity. It's just that the Board of Directors would be elected by the people. So I just want to make sure, I want to make sure everybody understands that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Ryan. I don't believe that was ever really made perfectly clear, so I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to, you know, in my time working here in the county, I've never had an experience where we've gone from the Board of Directors, where the supervisor is sitting as the Board of Directors, and then it goes over back to where the people elect those directors. So it's new for me, and I'm just reading through the statutes and reading through the things, and so we're just kind of trying to learn as best we can as we go through it. And whether the board wishes to go that direction or not, we'll see how the board goes.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Stephen Robinson.
I'm Stephen Robinson, Golden Valley. I've been researching this district for some time, and Mr. Latosky, thank you for your work. But will this be able to be seen by the people if I put this up here?
I don't know. You can try it and see.
Oh, there it is. Okay,
Yes.
I'll turn it the other way. In 1994, October, the county GVID applied for a designation of adequate water supply. They said at that time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Latosky, that there was 1,400 acre feet and 6,200 allocations, and that's the figures you're operating by right now, correct?
Mr. Robinson, we only have 10 minutes before this ends, so if you could be brief and give us a question.
I've been speaking 20 seconds. Okay, this designation shows that at the very bottom, there was 950 acre feet more than they said. So there's a total of 2,350 acre feet. Here's the designation from the state, from their list of water resources, and it says there's 2,350 acre feet. If the county had acknowledged that amount of water 23 or 28 years ago, we would have had another 4,300 allocations over the last 28 years. So my question, and right now you're charging people there's 409 allocations left. The question is, why did you not recognize that the state said you had enough water for 4,300 more? And the rest of this page shows that water in roads and other areas were receiving 11,000 acre feet or 8,700 acre feet, and we're still stuck operating under 1,400 acre feet. Shouldn't we acknowledge that there's another 4,300 allocations available and stop charging people $6,000 each? I'll show one more chart since I have a little bit more time.
I think you're out of time. We have your question. I'm just waiting for Mr.
Okay, well, these
Mikowski.
rates here show that we're more than double most of the rates in this area. And so I think that people should be aware that currently under the operation of the county, our rates are far higher than Valley Pioneers and any of the others. Thank you. So,
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Your time is up. Steve, do you have any kind of a
have an
response to
answer?
that?
Yes, the management of the water allocations that were established for the district, they have been done so through the policies and procedures that have been adopted by the district. And as such, we have managed over the course of time, and this again dates back to the 1990s period, with the number of allocations that were set. There were the lion's share of allocations assigned to actual district parcels on the basis of the area of those parcels, and then what was left was established as a number of unassigned allocations, which currently stands at just north of 400.
Order 9, I saw the paper.
Mr. Robinson, I just must say, with all due respect, that we have been managing what has been previously established and has been running with the district over the course of the number of decades dating back to the 90s.
And yet at any point you could have changed it and recognized that you had 4,300 more allocations. And that could have been done even at this last May hearing. Thank you.
Okay, our last speaker will be Danelle Heck, and she will be our final speaker. And thank you, Danelle. Since you're the unofficial voice on social media, I thought I would let you go ahead and give some closing remarks and any questions that you think may not have been answered.
Thank you, Supervisor Bishop. Danielle Keck, Golden Valley, 3808 North Stewart Mountain Road. I just want some clarifications. I thought I had heard that for the water allocations, 409 remain. Those were not sold off. Those still remain with the district.
That's correct.
That is correct. Okay. And then when looking at, so like when you ran over the averages for the budgets, the revenue versus the expenses, it's showing that that would be a negative 7,000 plus monthly. But then on the printout, it shows that this yearly fiscal year 23 budget, that is including the Hershey repair, which this kind of blurs the numbers. I would think that that repair would have came out of a different account, or you are guys, like the way that that's broken down, it's showing like, so are we running a negative every month in $7,000, or is that just because of that repair? I think we maybe could look at a couple years prior to that too, to see if that is consistent. So is a $7,000 deficit every month, is that pretty consistent?
Yes, to answer your question, this was last year's actuals. So yes, we actually ran a negative balance of $87,000 for the year. And this is what prompted the staff proposal, our proposal for a water rate increase. What we were finding is the unforeseen circumstances that had been arising. May 2021, we had the well 1 repair. We also had line breaks not only at Hershey, but previous to that on Bolsa and Teddy Roosevelt. And as a result, what we were finding was our revenues that we were pulling in were not accounting sufficiently for the unforeseen circumstances that can occur from time to time. And we largely were able to capture that is in the form of the depreciation that occurs with the district year in, in subsequent years. So by the virtue of the rate adjustment, we now do expect with, not too many unforeseen circumstances to actually have the balance of the district now,
So,
to which the revenues
like the
should
last-
exceed the expenses.
The last couple months, have we been running a deficit since the end of fiscal year? Because you said it ends in July. So we haven't been running a deficit.
No, we have seen actually a revenue increase because of the rate
The
adjustment.
rate increase. Okay, I wanted to clarify that. And then I just wanted to clarify with the gentleman who gave the presentation, are you guys owned by Central State Water Resources? Yeah, so it's Central State Water Resources that everybody needs to look into. It's not so that's a different entity. They are owned by Cactus State Water Resources. But they are an entity owned by them called Cactus State Utility Operating Company. So don't get that mixed up, guys.
Could I clarify that?
It's up to you guys. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Danielle.
Could I clarify that quickly?
Yeah, Mr. Kress, go ahead.
Cactus State Utility is the Arizona affiliate. That's what we do business as in Arizona, Cactus State Utility. Now, to your point, you're right. We are owned, our parent company is Central States Water Resources.
Okay, I just want to clarify that because it kind of was
Thank you. I always wonder, Cactus State, Central States, that's why I lead off with Cactus State, because that's home.
Okay, so this concludes our town hall, and I just want to say of the 55 residents that attended tonight, I really appreciate you taking your time out of your evening to come and submit these questions and your feedback. We look forward to working together with you to find the best path forward. So we look forward to the October 2nd meeting, to where the Board of Directors and the Board of Supervisors will consider which of these options may be the best way to go forward. And we'll expect a motion from one of our Board of Directors, and we'll make a decision which way to go forward. So I wish you all a safe return back to Golden Valley. And again, thank you so much for being here tonight. Bye-bye.